Hello everyone, or hello design team as I should say. Look at you all sitting there having a chat away in the comments. Nice to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully you can hear me. If one of you can just let me know, that'd be perfect. I can see myself on the screen, but I'm never too sure if my microphone's working. It did tell me I was muted a minute ago, but I think I've unmuted it. So let's hope. Let's hope you can hear me. Loud and clear. Oh, thank you, Rebecca. Perfect. Look at you. There we go. All sorted. Right, we've got a few of you here. Great. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. Hopefully you've all found me on YouTube. Yes, it looks like Joe's found me on YouTube as well this week. After a technical difficulty or two last week. Hi, Mum. How are you? Oh, you're on YouTube, Mum. You found me. We've got it all sorted this week. We're all working. Oh, Mother Goose Makery. That's Hannah, isn't it? Hello, Hannah. Hi, Angela. Perfect. We're all here. Let's get going, shall we? Because I'm actually prepared with a card today. Yes, I snuck up on you all, Lorraine. I could see you all chatting away. Are you all sat down with a cup of tea and a biscuit as well? That's what I'm going to need after this, I think. I'm going to have to apologise. I might have to have a cough here and there, and I'm just finishing a cough suite at the moment. I woke up feeling like I'd swallowed a whole roll of barbed wire this morning. Don't know why. I felt perfectly fine yesterday, but it woke me up at silly o'clock this morning. A little bit better now. I've sort of got a drink on hand, so got a cough suite that I'm just about to finish, so that should see me through the hour, hopefully. Right, today I said I was going to play with the nesting dies. I wasn't quite sure at the time which I was going to use, and I'm definitely doing that because I'm using the triangles today. And the stencil deck will make an appearance because that literally just sits on my desk, and the stencils very rarely make it back into the box, to be honest with you. So I've got a couple of stencils out ready for those. But what I thought I'd also do is actually have a play with this set, the Layering Fantasy Florals. Now, Lisa mentioned this set on her Friday Night Live. It's one of the very, very first, you can see by the number that we've got here, is number 9, the 9th set, layering die set that Lisa designed. And this is in the Friday Night Live section on Lisa's website at the moment. So I thought it'd be a really nice idea just to show you how this works while I've still got the chance. It's, as I say, it's on the Friday Night Live along with a host of other brilliant stencils, which would be real workhorses in your craft stash. But the offer that's on at the moment is that you buy 3. Well, you buy 3 and get you buy 3 stencils and you get the 4th free. So this is a fabulous offer. So some of the other offers, some of the other stencils that are sitting on Friday Night Live at the moment, I think Lisa might have gone through them. I don't have all of them. I have the majority, a lot of them. So you have the stars, you have the script and the ledger. You have this one, which I think is called the tiles. Oh, so you can't see that, can you? Let's move it away. There we go. You have this one, which is the tiles, which is a really lovely one to use. You have this one, which is the Art Deco petals. Now, I don't have the packaging for these ones because these were some of the originals that Lisa had. So I've had these 5-6 years now from when they very first come out. But you also have these ones here. You have the anemone and the pebbles and the wavy blooms. So what I'm going to show you today, in as much as making this background, can be done with any stencil that you have, actually, not only the ones on the Friday Night Live, but any of the stencils that you have, including those from the stencil deck if you want to use that also. But I thought it would be quite interesting to show you how you create like an ombre background and then use a layering stencil set on top of that using the same colours that you've created the ombre with. Now, I suppose you wouldn't necessarily think that that would work when you're going tone on tone. When you're going tone on tone, you don't always think you're able to sort of add extra once you've gone quite heavy with the ombre effect in the background. But hopefully this will show you that it can, and it creates a really lovely effect, particularly if you're creating it just for a background. So that's what I'm going to do today, and it gives me a chance to use the layering stencils and bring the Ultimate back in again, which I felt like I haven't used for a long time. But this is right up my street with stencils, and what I will be really excited from next week onwards, when the Muse and Maker stamps and stencils come to you, that I can start incorporating those lovely stamps. Again, they're going to be real workhorses in your stash that will help you create background as well. So not only do we have the stencil deck, which go hand in hand with the Muse and Maker, I'm so excited about those. So let's get going. I'm using the Ish card. I've actually really become quite fond of the A2 size, because I've managed to get myself some A2 card blanks as well, and everything just works together really perfectly. And this is, if you're new to blending and ink blending, or it's something that you're working and gaining more confidence in the technique, then the A2 size is perfect for that. You can do this blending technique on any size. You can do it on the A6, on the 5x5, but say the A2 is a really nice size just to get yourself started with this. I'm using PAULA's colours again this week, purely because I just really enjoyed them so much last week. And I'm just going to pop on here and put the slide up just to let you know everything that I've used, and pop back onto the comments. There's an awful lot of you chatting in the background. It's nice to have you all here, actually. So we've got oh hi Michelle from Oregon. That's a name I don't recognise. So it's lovely to have you here as well from across the way. I'm actually in Ireland myself, Southern Ireland, in the county of Cork. So I am from the UK, as you can probably tell, but so I'm across the pond from you there in the US. So I'm just quickly catching up on all your chats. I'll read them afterwards. Right, so let's get going. As I say, I'm using PAULA's blending inks, but again, choose any 3 inks, 3 inks that you like. Any of the blending inks would work for this brilliantly. I'm just really liking PAULA's colours at the moment. So I've gone for the Albers Ochre, the Frida Cherry, and the Grapefruit colour. So these are typical sunset colours. So again, I've got a really grey day here. We did see the sun at some stage over the last couple of days, briefly, but I think I'll bring the sun to myself by bringing in these colours. So I'm going to start off creating this ombre background. Now, when I talk about an ombre background, and this again is for people who are joining for the first time, who might be new to this as well, it's basically creating a gradient of colours onto your cardstock. I'm working upwards, but you could easily work the opposite way with the darker colour on top. I've chosen 3 colours. You can see the layers here. You can see the cherry, then the grapefruit, and then the ochre colour here. That's the way that I've layered them. And what you do, you try and create as much of a seamless blend between each of the colours as you can. I'm using the brilliant Pro Blend brushes from Lisa. I've managed to have one for each of the colours for PAULA's range, so I do keep one colour per brush, but if you wanted to just get one brush per colour family, that would work absolutely perfectly. But because of the larger sort of diffused way that the bristles are arranged in the brush, you can get a really soft blend. And definitely working onto an A2, it makes this technique of blending an awful lot easier, I found. And that's for me, who is quite comfortable ink blending and tried lots of different brushes and whatever. So if you want to give it a go, then these brushes are ideal. If not, then if you have the blending brushes from Lisa's, these would be perfect, particularly the larger ones, mainly because they cover a lot of the card very quickly, and you can put a lot of ink down all at once. Okay, so I'm just going to take that slide off there so you can see everything that I'm using. I will add some sort of die cutting onto this afterwards as well, but I'm just going to take away that graphic there for now. So I've got plenty of space to spread myself out. Generally, when we do this technique, I like to work from the darkest colour to the lightest colour. You will have your, if you give this a go, you will have your preference on how you do this. So again, I'm using the Pro Blend. I'm picking up a good bit of ink, and then I'm going to diffuse that ink onto my messy matte first, just to make sure that it's equally blended onto the bristles of the brush, so I don't end up with a clump or a splodge on the card that I can't blend out. Doesn't happen very often with these Pro Blends, I must admit, which is why these are absolutely ideal if you are new to this technique. So I'm going to work quite quick because it does take a little while, and actually I find this quite a mindful thing to do. I can sort of really go into my own world, and depending on the time that you have, it just sort of depends on how dark you go with the colour. But I'm using 3 colours, so you roughly want to split your card that you're blending onto into 3. Doesn't have to be exact, sort of do it by eye, and you'll find that you'll naturally work to about 1/3 of the cardstock anyway. And you see what I'm doing, I'm using circular motions while I have a lot of ink on my brush, and just bringing that everything that I've put onto the blending mat, I'm also moving back onto the cardstock as well. And then when I feel that I'm not having any more ink leave the brush onto the cardstock, then I will pick up more ink, and then I start the process again. Again, always blending onto the messy matte first. I will in a second, when this becomes a lot darker and I'm more confident in how the brush is working, I will come straight from the ink pad directly onto the cardstock, and you can see at this stage that it really strengthens the look of the colour by doing that. But I'm only doing that once I've had an awful lot of colour actually put down onto the cardstock, because I know that I won't need to blend it out. Now the ombre effect comes here. You can see we've got this nice softened look on this edge, and I'm working up into that, and it's this section here that you will then blend the second colour into to get that sort of, I like to call it an airbrush look, like the seamless look. I'm just going to wipe away that colour here, mainly so I don't contaminate my next brush when I'm using the orange. Okay, just make sure that's dry. So I'm going to use the grapefruit now, which is a lovely orange colour, and I'm going to do exactly the same. So I'm going to pick up the ink, blend it onto here first. This time, instead of working from the edge into the card, obviously I want to create this section through the middle. So I should be working from either side of the cardstock this time. and working into the middle. So initially all I'm worried about is just creating that stripe of colour, and then I shall worry about the blend into the pink in a second. So I just want to add this colour in like so. So again, you start off on the messy mat from the edge and just work into the cardstock itself, and the brush really does do the work for you as long as you keep going in circular motions. Once a lot of the ink has actually been worked off the brush, then you can go backwards and forwards if you feel that you need to add a little bit of colour like that. But otherwise, if you can, I would definitely recommend going in circular motions, because that gives it covers a large area. Actually, you can make the circles smaller, you can make them larger depending on the area that you want to cover, and you just carry on going until you have the intensity of the colour that you like. I'm not worried whether I'm going into this red section or not as well, but you can see by adding this stripe here that the blend between the two colours, even without me trying, has softened already. Now I'm just using what's on my brush and what's onto the messy mat, and I'm actually actively blending where these two colours are meeting here. And you'll be surprised that with the amount of ink that is left on the brush, that will soften that blend. Now this can be done with blues and greens. It can be done to a certain extent between blues and yellows as well. Obviously the crossover will give you that green blend, but generally most things you can create that softened airbrush look. And then if you want to, if you feel the need to come in back in with the colour that you're sitting next to with the brush, and just sort of add extra that way if you feel you need to just even it up a little bit, but you'll know that yourself as you're blending. So happy with that. So now what I'm going to do is turn it around. Because I'm right-handed, it makes it easier for me to blend obviously from the right hand side towards the left. If you are left-handed, I would continue working from this direction here, whatever is comfortable for you, but don't be frightened to move your paper around to make your life easier with the blend. So let me just move that out of the way as well. So now I can bring in this lovely Albers Ochre colour. I tried to describe it last week. It's a real soft, like buttercup yellow. I mean, we have another yellow here, like Georgia Moss, and you can see the colour. Can't quite see it like that because that's in the shade, but you can see the difference in colour. There is an element of peachiness to the Albers Ochre, which I just really, really like the softness of this. I really, really do. So again, I'm blending across in exactly the same way as I did with the other two colours. Make sure you pick up lots of ink, blend it onto the mat first. You see a lot of ink goes onto my blending mat around, and I will make sure that I pull as much of that ink back onto the cardstock as I can, so as not to waste it. And there's always more ink sitting in your brush than you realise. So if you've got the time and you can just sit here and just use the brush and work the brush in the circular motions, you'll be surprised at how much ink comes off of your brush onto the cardstock without having to go to your ink pad. Now obviously I'm going to my ink pad probably more than I would do, just so I can speed this up, because otherwise I actually find this quite therapeutic, I suppose, quite hypnotizing. I can just get carried away sort of doing this, go blend and blend and blend. And you can see once I've got the intensity of colour here, now I'm working into this section where it's meeting the colour that it's sitting next to. So in this case, the grapefruit, the orangey colour. So I'm just working backwards and forwards until I've taken away that sort of real harsh stripe of colour. And there, quite quickly actually, you can see that we've covered the whole of the card. That is a white piece of cardstock, but now picking this up, you would never guess that. And actually, with the amount, it's probably an important note to say, actually, particularly for those, again, who are new to crafting or new to inking. You may not be new to crafting, you may be a die cutter, you may just be used to working with paper and just venturing into the world of inking. This is not wet. If you were to be using paints or any type of wet medium with a paintbrush, obviously you'd have to leave this to set aside and dry. There's no way that you'd be able to touch this and not have any ink come off. But because of the nature of the ink that we're using, this dries almost instantly onto this cardstock, even Lisa's super smooth cardstock. So this is ready to continue working and layering with more ink colours and images. So that is actually quite an important point. The only time it would be wet, really, really wet, using ink pads is if you were to actually take the ink pad itself and go directly to paper. Then you'd be laying down an awful lot more ink onto the cardstock, and then you probably would have to wait for it to dry a little bit longer or put a heat gun on it, but nowhere near as long as you'd have to wait for paint to dry. Now what I want to do now, I want to add a bit of texture here, and I'll bring this one in here, and you can probably see here you've got some texture. This is done by spritzing some water onto this, because these are water reactive inks, which makes them very easy to clear up. I mean, you see me clearing up the messy mat here. All I'm using is a spray bottle with water, tap water in there, and a microfiber cloth. That is all you need to clean up after your inks, either cleaning up your messy mat and your stencils, water and a microfiber cloth. But I want to add a little bit of texture on here before I start stenciling, because what that will do, it will give texture in between the images that I'm going to stencil. You could stencil first and then spritz over the top, but then your images will also have the texture on. So entirely up to you. You can do it both ways. So I'm just going to get a spray bottle. I've just got these tiny little mini misters, which I've had for years. So I'm just going to spray just from a distance onto this piece here. I'm going to move this one out of the way. Don't need to do much. You just do a little bit initially, and then as you watch, you can actually start seeing some crackle appear. There you go, it's sort of almost developing as we go along. Now you could leave that to dry as it is, or you could bring yourself a cloth in and just dab sort of straight down and then straight up, and that will actually lift the ink away. You don't want to rub at this stage, because that rubbing will also create that swirly effect. It's up to you if that's the look that you want to go for. I'm just going to do a little bit down here. If you don't have a spray mister, you can put a little bit in the palm of your hand, and you can flick this on with your fingers like this. It does create larger areas. You can see that bit here, but it's a really nice way to add texture to your piece. So I just want to add a little bit extra here, so I'm just going to just one spritz. You really don't need much at all, and then just dab away. And you can see now that we've got some texture onto this background, which in itself you could use, and you can use as is. You don't need to do anything else. You could use this to die cut from. You can use it just as a background and layer any of your die cuts on top of this. This is good to go, and it's actually a really nice way to play with backgrounds. But I will stencil over the top of this now. So I'm going to bring in my Ultimate, and today actually I'm using the tacky mat on here, because obviously this piece of cardstock is smaller than the stencils that I'm using. So I'm going to bring in these layering stencils. Now there was another set of these as well. I think it might have been a rose, but these are the ones that are still in stock and available on that buy 3 get a 4th one free offer. It's a really nice way to introduce yourself into layering stencils as well, because there is only 3 layers. If you know Lisa's layering stencils, then some of the more intricate designs that she has can go into 9, 10, 11 layers of stencils. They all work in exactly the same way, but if safe, it's a less intimidating way. So you have 3 on here. We still have the peg system, so even really early back on then, Lisa obviously had all of this in mind. There was a plan. So I work with my ultimate to the side, because and when I say to the side, I put the pegs to the side. If you look at the way that everything is designed, the ultimate is designed to sit that way round, but that means that my image is on the side. And for me personally, this is purely a personal thing, I find it easier to rotate my ultimate so I have the image the right way round as I'm stenciling. For me, it just makes a little bit more sense to my brain. Right, so now I'm going to get stenciling. So we can see here that this layer of the stencil is the background of the flower, because this is, you can see the whole outline. What I want to do, I'm going to bring in the cherry to start with. So this is the darkest colour. I want to stencil through these apertures with the same colour as sitting under the stencil. So the bottom layer here, or the first colour that I put on, was PAULA's Frida Cherry. So that is the colour that I'm going to use on this first layer of stencils. Now, this is where perhaps if you're new to this, you'd think, well, why are you putting the same colour on top of the colour that's already there? By using a different brush, you are adding more ink in a more concentrated fashion. You're adding it through a stencil, so you're adding the ink to a smaller area, which means you can put more ink down. And it does mean that you can add ink and layer these images tone on tone. It does work. And I totally appreciate that if you're new to this, the last thing you'd imagine to be doing was using the same colour as the underneath card would be. But I'm going to layer that on. Now, as we can see, I'm moving up into the areas where we're now turning orange. So I am going to change inks. You don't have to. You could choose to do all of this in a totally different colour, something like a purple, or if you were sticking with PAULA's colours, the Matisse, the aubergine colour, you'd be able to do all of that away across all of these stencils, and that would look stunning. Because if you think about a sunset, you have the reds and the oranges and the yellows and the purples. So the purple would look perfect and it would blend lovely over all of these colours. But I'm not going with that one. I'm going with that one, the grapefruit. So because I'm working into the areas where the orange is now, so I've just changed the ink. So I shall be blending this colour. What I'm doing also is covering over some of the areas that I mottled by adding water to. What that will do is leave the areas between the flowers with that mottled look, sort of making that stand out more, I suppose, because once this is stenciled, it will then be very hard to add colour in between those flowers without affecting what you're stenciling. So by spritzing it with water first, you've added that texture that is there already. So now we can sort of cover up that texture that is going to sit under the flowers. So I'm going to work some more red into here. Now I've put the orange in, I'm going to keep going with that theme of the ombre blend. So this particular flower here, you can see I'm working both the red colour and the orange colour. And again, the same way as I've done the blend on the overall piece of cardstock, I'm making sure that as best that I can, making sure the blend between the two colours is as seamless as possible. Okay. So I've tipped some of the grapefruit just into the bottom of these flowers here before I then swap the colours and come in. Right, for the yellow that I'm going to use for the flowers here, I'm actually going to swap from the ochre colour to the, what am I doing? There we are. I'm going to swap from the ochre colour to the Georgia moss colour, mainly because this is such a pale colour that it possibly won't layer as well over the top of this, but the Georgia moss will. I did do that on this one here, but you won't be able to tell that I'm swapping colour. It's not a significant change, but it's enough of a change, and I think that is the because of the properties of yellow being so pale, particularly when you're going into like the lemony shades of yellow. So I'm going to be mindful not to add too much, so I don't want it to be real sunshiny. And actually the colours are a tiny bit muted on the screen here, but you'll see when I photograph this a little bit later on, sort of the vibrancy of the colours. So again, I'm just going to make sure that the blend between the two colours in this in these flowers is as seamless as possible. So if you do need to come back in with the other colour, just do. This is the joy of blending. This is the fun part of blending, actually, to see the different effects that you can get, and you can guarantee actually you can do this card twice and both will turn out slightly differently, so you will have subtle changes, which is nice because I don't like making the same card twice. So now when I take this away, you'll see just exactly how well that tone on tone works. Now that in itself I think looks lovely. You could just use the stenciling. Hi Lisa. You can use the stenciling just as it is like that. You don't need to add any of the flower detail, which means that if you didn't have any layering stencils and you purely had one design stencils like we have here, you'd still be able to create that effect using one of these stencils. You don't need to continue to layer. So any of your stencil deck stencils will be perfect for this. And say you could take this away and just use this as now. But I think it'd be quite interesting for you to see that you can still use layering stencils on top of this. Now, this second stencil that we have, as you can see, has got a little bit more detail to it. I am going to adopt exactly the same technique as I did before, and I'm going to come in with a lot more ink this time. Still going tone on tone, so I'm going to do the grapefruit colours through the grapefruit sections of the card, and then make sure I use, there we are, let's be organised. Put it that way around. Okay, so I'm going to come in with the yellow into the top of these flowers here. Okay, and this stage I'm definitely making sure that I put as much ink down as I can. So make sure I tip into this one with a bit of orange as well, but the grapefruit colour. Now, as I say, I'm using PAULA's colours for these, which are actually very buildable, but I think quite subtle as well, particularly these ones that I'm using. But if you don't have these and you wanted to use any of the other blending inks, they would work absolutely perfectly as well. If you were going for a darker colour, like a purple, or some of the real deep blues, like the was it Deep Ocean and the salty, I've forgotten the colour, Surf's Up colour. Yep, so I'm just trying to remember which are the real deep blue colours. This layer, obviously, you can really lay on a lot of ink, but for the previous layers, I'd perhaps just go a little bit lighter to give you the chance to build on top of that. Now I'm just going to do, I'm just going to take a quick look now and just check that I am picking up enough detail on those layers to make sure that that is picking up. Now the advantage here is that I can pop my stencil back down and add more ink if I feel I haven't got enough on there. Now it could be that you might want a little bit more definition on these lower flowers where the red is. This is where you can perhaps come in with a little bit of the purple. So the aubergine colour here layers really brilliantly over red, and this stands for right across Lisa's range of inks. It's very hard to shadow and create shadow effects and layered effects with red ink, I think anyway, but it's hard to know what color to use, but I think purple works really well, because I'm layering purple over the top of this red, and when I remove this stencil in a second, the purple that I've just laid down onto that color won't scream purple for you, but it will just bring out the red details that you can see there. So that's a really useful color and a really useful technique for you. So you can see we're actually still building the detail into these flowers here. I'm going to come in with the last stencil. Now this one I will perhaps do just slightly differently. I probably won't use any yellow, but I will subtly start bringing some of the orange over the top of the yellow. So basically what I'm doing this level, the darker colour, I'm just bringing up a level. So into the yellow section on the cardstock, I'm just going to blend a tiny bit of orange. And on the orange section, I shall blend a tiny bit of red, just to make sure that I get these extra details just popping on the cardstock. So we've worked that there. And I'm just going to bring in the cherry colour. I'm just going to go slightly over the orange here, really gently. Again, blending this cherry or a red colour, pinky colour over the top of orange. Won't stop it being orange, but it will just give it that a little bit more depth. And again, this is where you can bring in the purpley colour to blend over the top of the red. It won't stop it from being red, it will just make it deeper, and that will just give you that depth of color basically, and it will give you that illusion that there's shadows happening and almost a 3D look, which is what Lisa's stencils are actually so perfect for. Now do remember what I'm creating here is a background, so your stenciling doesn't need to be super crisp and on point as if it were your main focal image. That's not what we're creating here. We are creating the background. So if I take that away, and let me just see, oh, bear with me, I'm going to lean over us for a second. Actually, my light isn't that great, is it, today? I think it's getting quite dark, but I'm just going to see if I can pop my other camera on for you and zoom that in. If I can come onto camera. Oh, I don't know why the light on this one is better, but I shall hold this up, and hopefully you can see the detail in the flowers that I've been stenciling for you there. So that shows that you can create your background and still stencil over the top and create a lovely background paper for you to either die cut from, or you can enhance with die cuts, which is what I'll be doing now. I might actually leave it on that camera because the light is better. The light that you can see now is the light that I can see sort of sitting here. I don't know why my other camera isn't working quite as well, but what I might do, I might put my light on. So if you just bear with me a second. Let me see. Oh, now that's blowing that colour out there, but if I can go back to that one. There we are. That looks a little bit better, doesn't it? You can actually see now. Okay, so that's a really, really nice background. So you can see that we've still got the texture in between the flowers now that we managed to create with water. Now, it makes a little bit more sense. If I were to spritz this with water now, the flowers would also get that mottled colour on as well, which, if that's the look that you're after, then say that would be absolutely perfect too. But I wanted just to keep the texture in between the flowers. Before I go on and sort of embellish this, you can add a little bit more detail with the stencil deck as well. If I just bring in, and you can see the difference between the two here, and you can see the difference in colour. What you'll find as this one dries, although this one isn't wet, as in like have wet paint, as it does dry and settle into the paper a little bit more, you will have a more of a diffused colour into it, more of a chalky look, a bit like what you have here. So it does settle down. So I always say that if you're not entirely convinced with what you've stenciled, leave it on your desk, go away and have a drink, have a cup of tea, go in the garden or whatever, give it, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 minutes, come back to it, and the whole look will have settled down. And then you might find that that will give you the extra impetus or the extra inspiration to carry on with it, particularly if you think your blending isn't quite right. We can all be our own worst critics, but this will actually mute down just slightly. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of texture around the outside, a little bit more interest. Again, when the Musa Maker is released, stamps will be absolutely ideal to be doing this and creating more backgrounds for. So these will definitely be something and techniques that you'll be seeing me use alongside these stencils. These stencils are just perfect for that as well. So I'm going to bring in the three colours again that I have been using, and just create just a little bit more interest around the outside. I'm not going to be going mad and again getting perfect stenciled images. I'm only using tiny little amounts here and there just to add a little bit of texture in between, a little bit of interest in between these images. Add a little bit there. I'll perhaps go a little bit up the top here. These Harlequin diamonds are absolutely perfect for this. We don't need much. And again, I'm going tone on tone, so it's not really jumping out at you. There will be other times when you'll want to go for a contrast colour. Oh, let me make sure I use the right colour. Yeah, there will be other times when a contrast colour or using a black or a darker colour will be just perfect. I think it depends on your mood as well. Not today. I'm going with tone on tone because that is the look that I wanted to go for. So just a couple of little diamonds. Again, you have these little zigzags here that you could add in if you wanted. Maybe I'll just add a little bit there. I think I might leave that at that. You can't sometimes you can overdo it. It depends. If you do overdo it, that would be your style, and you know how much to do and when to stop. Other times you can perhaps be a little bit timid with it as well. It depends on the day as to how much you play. You'll know if you think I'm perhaps going at it too much. Again, just leave it be. Either start on a different project or walk away and come back to it, and you'll get a different perspective on the look. Particularly when you're layering like this. Now, what I want to do is just create a little bit of I don't know, a faux frame type look around the outside of here, because I won't be mounting this onto another colour. I'll just be putting this straight onto a white cardstock, card blank. But I'm going to come in with a little bit of purple. So this is the Matisse Aubergine, and just try and blend in opposite corners. So just bring a little bit of shading in there and a little bit of shading into this corner as well. And then I shall do the same in the opposite colour. Now, you'll notice the real difference on this corner because obviously I'm using the purple colour onto the yellow. But I think that would work as long as I go gentle, and you can see just how soft and how controlled you can have that blend using the Pro Blend brushes. And I shall just work again into that section there. Okay, so I've got two opposing colours, so that's, and perhaps just go a little bit, because actually by tipping over the edge of the card you actually get a very faint, it looks like a fine liner mark goes right around the edge without actually adding colour onto the project itself. So keeping it subtle. So I'm just going to wipe away that. Right, so that's the background done, and you can really have fun creating those backgrounds. You can spend as little or as long as you like on that, and you can make a whole section of these. You can use them to die cut with, you can use them as your backgrounds to cards. Now, I did say that I was going to use the nesting dies for this, and I wanted to use the triangles. I think they give a nice modern look, I think. So what I've done, let me get this, and I'm using white. You could go black. A silhouette would look absolutely brilliant on top of this, with the sentiment, and that would work. It's a super easy card. But I'm just going to get these dies out. What I've done, I've used all but two of the dies, and I've taped them together and die cut them like this. And I've die cut them from white textured cardstock. So after you've die cut, you actually come out with this type of affair like this. Okay. So if you run these through the die cutting machine, you end up with these triangles here. I'm just going to put this away. Okay. And then as you separate them out, what you've done, you've actually created triangle frames. So they're not solid. If you wanted to have a solid triangle without the insert, you would just die cut one of the dies by itself. But I wanted to have the frames because I wanted the triangles on there, but I didn't want them to be solid, and I wanted the background to really shine through as well. So that's the die cutting that I've done. I probably won't use these two, but I will use these. And I think the white just really freshens up the card. It could be a type of year thing. I'm just fed up with the dark, the days being so dark. So I think white just really lifts everything. I had a sentiment that I'd already had die cut as well, so that was sitting on white cardstock. So this is the type of affair that I'm going to be looking at creating. I shall probably layer these onto the card a bit like that. So what I'm going to stick these on now. So I'm using the larger of the two as well, but I will be cutting this one down to size. So I'm going to be gluing this on off the page. About, let's go there. And this next size down, I can layer, but this is actually going onto the page. And I'm going to have that flush with the edge like that. I think triangles just add a real modern element to any card as well. And I think people sometimes don't always know how to use them. They're quite an unusual shape, particularly when you have them for the first time. But once you've used them a couple of times, and you'll get your style, you'll get your favourite ways of using them, as you do with all shapes, all things. So I'm going to take that away. You can see that sitting there like that. And I'm going to layer probably the sentiment there. So we've got a nice band going across. And also what I've done, I looked through all the dies. I didn't know if we needed quite a sentiment there, or some image there. You could possibly even have it like that. Have a play. But I'm going to have that there. So I looked through the dies and see what flowers I have, just to create some sort of image here. And I found the little spring flowers and petals. This is definitely still on the website. I had a look. I've got a whole host of die cuts that are sitting in there waiting to be used, actually, which is quite handy. So I've got a couple of stems that have already been die cut and some flowers, fortunately some pink ones and with the yellow centre, so I think they work really well. And there was 3 different sizes, so I think what I might do is just arrange those on here like so. So we can either have them like that, which I think works, or we can add in possibly that little bit of green as well. Let's have a see. Perhaps if we can do that. I think the green might work as well, actually. What do you think? That's the different green, but I don't think that matters too much. What do we reckon? Yeah, I'm going to do that. Actually, what I might do, I'm going to put this green, I'm going to put the darker green on this side. And this is where you can tell I've gone quiet now. I'm concentrating on these really small dies. I don't always feel like I'm delicate enough to do this, so yeah, it makes me go quiet. So I'm just going to layer that there. I'm going to snip this one down to size in a second. I'm going to put myself a dab of glue on there so the largest flower can sit up there. And this one is going to go in here. I think it works with the 2 different greens. It's really handy with the packaging that Lisa has for her dies, in that they are little envelopes. So anything that you die cut that you don't use on the project that you're making at the time, it's so easy to store and come back to them for another time, just for like a project like this. Because it actually gives you the inspiration then to use it, because I don't know if I would have picked these ones if I had to die cut them, or the fact that they were sitting in there, it meant that I can just pull them out and put them onto the card and decide whether I like them or not. So it made it easy to choose. So I'm just going to layer those flowers there. I think they work. And just before we finish, let me get myself now. Probably one of the few times you'll see me use a small pair of scissors. I'm just going to trim those down to size like that. There we are. So it stays within the triangles. And then we can add our sentiment on. I think I might put that onto some foam pads. Okay. And on there. Let's have a see. That's a lot of foam pads now, isn't it? I'm going to have to take the backs off of all of them, aren't I? That's okay. Let's see. We can do this. How's everybody all there? And that one. I will take all of these off, because if I don't do it now, then I'll probably lose the sentiment. Because I do need to have a good tidy up on my desk. Okay, and I think we can sit that sentiment just there. And that is a really nice, bright summery card. Again, I'll try and photograph it so you'll see the colours better. For some reason, it's not particularly coming out very well on the video at the moment. But then if we just add that straight onto an A2 card blank with that white border around the outside, I think that's a really nice, bright, cheery card. And yeah, just using 3 sets. And it's really nice when you can match the older stuff, like the layering stencils that we have here. So some of the original products with a lot more of the newer products as well. It's really nice to be able to see how you can mix and match them all together. As I say, you don't necessarily have to use the layering stencils. You can use any stencil over the top of any inked background. It would work in exactly the same way. So we add that onto there. There we are. So that's today's card. So I really enjoy doing that. It's just sort of brought everything back into everything that I love about crafting, sort of creating something from a white piece of cardstock, which is another thing when you actually gift these to someone. What they don't realise is you start off with a white piece of card, and all the colour that you put on is something that you can add, and you've added with thought and the blending, which is, I think, is a really nice, the special part of giving these away. But I shall leave that with you there today. I hope you get the stencils that you want. It would be really nice to see if you give this a try, or any of your makes, in the Lisa Horton Facebook group. There's a quick reminder. I had a quick look on the schedule actually. Paula will be up on Hobbycraft with you all on Thursday at 7:30 and at 12 this week as well. So if you do have that and you are around, that'd be lovely shows to tune into. If not, then I'm sure we will be able to catch them. Catch up on these things as well. But I'll leave that there with the afternoon. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care.